me now, I've got some of the coolest OGs you have maybe never had the pleasure of meeting. I hope you get to one day. We've got Tony Parisi from Unity Technologies. We've got Dan Meeks and Larry Rosenthal. I want you guys to just quickly jump around, give us a little dive into where you are right now and what you're working on, because you have a couple different projects. Dan, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I work in immersive technology. Most of my day job is inside a military simulation. So I build a lot of simulators for the military, but I've had a long history with Janus VR since the beginning. And I've always looked for ways to leverage Janus VR in my own business. Yeah. And I'm working on a Unity project, by the way. So that's another thing I got in my quiver right now. Yeah, so that's a big overall who I am and what I'm working on.
Thanks, Dan. Excited to talk more. Tony.
Thank you for the business, Dan. We appreciate it. So yeah, I work at Unity. I've been here about 5 years, overseeing how our ad tech stack and new bits and pieces of e-commerce technology, cloud technology can be used to power industries beyond gaming. Most people here probably know about Unity as being a prominent game engine, but we're moving into lots of other industries. So my particular purview around that is brand advertising and e-commerce.
Fantastic. And Larry?
So recently, I guess in the last year or so, my partner, Blurima Topali, and myself have been working on an online education platform called Arcadia Virtual, which is kind of a complement and to the Moocs for online training and dealing, providing the social immersive stuff that really doesn't exist in the Zoom frame world. And we've got an early prototype, and we've been doing some early meetings with partners and doing some small presentations in it. Some things with the neurodiversity and learning. We were targeting adults, but now we're finding, again, it's the COVID era, so everybody needs to learn something, it seems, in a new way. So even now we're looking at neurodiversity in children, and we've been talking about getting funding, and even there's a Unity thing that I just applied for, some Unity. So we're building in a WebXR, and but again, technology has always been something I've been agnostic about, as long as I've known Tony. It's about what we do with it versus what we, the actual platform company behind it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is, I'm really happy to have you all here. You've been working in this space for a long time. The first wave was, you're no strangers to the first wave. And I'd love to, sort of the purpose of this panel for me, I'd really love to give people an understanding of where this all came from. That's awesome, Dan.
Dan has given us a Galactica reference. Yes.
Where this all came from, and I know, take me back. It's June 1994. There's a young Tony Parisi with hair down to his ass, listening to rock and roll, and he wants to put objects on the web. How did VRML come about?
Well, there you go. And thanks. You hit the nail on the head. I literally wrote the first piece of metaverse code ever, arguably. This guy Mark Pesci and I worked on a prototype to deliver 3D models on the internet, but not like downloaded like by a FTP or something, like using the World Wide Web protocols, HTTP, deliver that stuff over the wire, parse it with tech I knew how to write, because I'm like kind of this compilers guy, and present it in 3D using a real-time library for a PC back in 1994. The real-time library tech came to be, that became Microsoft DirectX. So we were talking about the beginning of the web and the beginning of Direct 3D and Microsoft's rendering, right, which went up against OpenGL at the time. And we connected it to Mosaic. We figured out some secret incantation. So when you click on, there were helper browser windows. It was a separate window. It wasn't even a plugin then. So it was a separate executable. And so you see the 3D in one window, but you click on that and it would launch another web page, and the two could communicate together. So it was hyperlinking and 3D delivery over the web 27 years ago, when nobody had a PC who could really render it. We were still on dial-up modems, and most of this web tech was still pretty rickety. I mean, this was before JavaScript. It was before Java, in fact, that we got this started.
Well, within 3 months, within 3 to 4 months, I had heard about this. I'm in New York. My background was industrial design. I was with Apple doing their seminars on what I called the 3D presentation and visualization, which some people called VR. I used Stratavision and Vertus VR, another product for real-time 3D. I heard they had put this stuff on the web. I immediately reached out to them. I think within 6 months, I started the New York vrml SIG, which was, I guess, the first user group or meetup in New York, and where everybody had been focused on the beginning of Flash at that point. I took a whole, slew of people and started getting to think about 3D spaces. And then we eventually all came together in a little sweaty cafe in New York City. And I mean, so it was very early about getting designers involved.
And Larry and I met in the early noughts. No, it was the late 90s. And then we reconnected and started working together a lot in the early noughts when it was almost kind of second wave, when Philip was starting Second Life. So there's a lot of, we have little touch points along the way on a lot of this stuff.
That was the X3D years where I forget, we called it Ajax 3D or something. Was that?
There were so many buzzwords. There was XML and Ajax.
But the point
I've literally forgotten them all. I've forgotten them all.
And when James McRae started working Janus markup language, it was directly related to vrml. It was just modernized, because at the time Palmer Luckey had the Oculus Rift out, and it was just kind of cultivated for that consumer off-the-shelf VR. So yeah, same DNA.
It all builds on itself. I mean, when I first tried Janus, I was walking through it, watching it res up, and it was reminding me of Active Worlds, which was another system that was, again, we talk about open standards and non-open standards. It was more of a non-open standards way of doing 3D back in the mid 90s. Again, when 94 to 96, when that first wave hit, and then again it went away.
But all hang on, you mentioned Active Worlds, but all the dominoes fell, Sam. So they were not vrml to begin with. And then one after another, Active Worlds, Cybertown, all of these things came on, Black Sun, all of these things came online and decided to use vrml as the file format. Why resolve that? And they figured that way we could have the biggest group of creators. But then they actually layered multiplayer, multi-user stuff on top. The core of vrml was like delivering 3D content so that you and I could share it. It wasn't about real-time avatar communication. That wasn't the vision, but we hadn't even gotten that far yet. But a lot of impatient people by the late 90s were like, well, I got to build the metaverse on this
right now. Very early, too. I mean, if you remember the McDonald brothers, two twins from Long Island who were part of the core group of the New York vrml SIG, they wrote a multi-user plugin language to use with the vrml tools. And literally, that's when Starbase C3 was launched. We took the spaceships, and in that little back room in the Alt Coffee Cyber Cafe, we had, people flying spaceships around, chatting with each other in multi-user 3D. And then, actually, it was after that I discovered Black Sun, and then used that technology. And then, ironically, I took pre-production design from Snow Crash for a game that never got made, and put that into vrml and the Black Sun plugin by 96. So a year after, by 2 years after it started as just production artwork for a game that never got going, the actual models and data sets ended up in the tools and was online, and people were doing, inside the Black Sun bar chatting as avatars.
So here we are, Sam, like all of the four of us have been on a continuum of building this stuff over and over again, by the way.
Right.
We built this all 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
More than once.
And
here we are.
The big shocker for me was when I first met Larry, and I was going on about how we created Gather VR, which was like the first of what I knew of a convention in VR. And then he teleports me in Hubs to a recreation of what he created, and it looked almost exactly the same. And I'm like, I never even heard of this before.
And that was in 2010. That was there was a company that, again, was combining Java and real-time 3D called Altadin out of France. They had a product called 3D Explorer. This is already by 2009, 2010, after the Second Life bubble. There was a momentary, after the Second Life bubble from 2006, and when Vivite and things, there was a momentary bubble where people said, let's do conventions and things in 3D. VR Edge was a conference, and actually built some things for that. And that's when, and that year we did a Cloud Slam 2010, all in an online convention, like what people are attempting to do, what Virabella and things are doing now. Yeah. Sam, I lost your audio.
Yeah, we can't. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, that's why. Okay, I thought I would have done a better job of that.
We
Sorry.
saw the hands going.
I was
so
like, you're talking with my hands. Yeah. Well, what I was struck by is, like, you guys have gone through a few waves, right? What I was struck by today in Somnian's Space was, I was having a lot of flashbacks to cool things we did in Janus, and it seems so timing based, because I've seen this passionate community building cool cars and race games. I've seen
I was
this
watching
before,
you, and
right? And I'm not saying
yeah.
it's not fantastic. I've just seen it again and again, and I'm wondering what is the difference, because to me it seems like there has to be all these other things supporting. It seems like the way that you move fast is if you sort of close it down, and money, but to me it seems like
but also an intersection of new technologies.
What I got by money is interest. I mean, I saw you guys in Somnium Space, and they've just put the cars in, and they're doing car sales now. Again, I waited 3 years before bringing Starbase C3, which existed in vrml 10 years earlier, into Second Life, because at that point they had finally instituted an economy. Once there was an economy, I could now make money and give them a percentage, like I do with PayPal or selling something on eBay. Then it made sense. Otherwise, I'm just there making them rich by them using my content.
100%.
And
yeah, so I think that is the first pillar. I'm with Larry on this. Like, this is all about timing. What were we talking about in the green room? What were we talking about on Twitter, Larry? Right. Apple finally puts out tablets and Procreate and styluses, and it all comes together.
Yep.
Wacom was around for 20 years before that, right? But now anybody with a tablet and a cheap program like Procreate can do amazing stuff making art. It's all about timing. In this case with the metaverse, it's like Larry is hit on one key thing. We need to incent creators. We need to give them the tools and give them a way to succeed. This isn't ever going to happen.
And
Sorry,
Dan, the next burst is going to happen when we start doing spatial AR, where you're walking on the sidewalk and not holding a phone, building your biceps. When that next burst of technology comes out, then you'll get that flurry of creativity again. And just like Larry says, you need the money to kind of make certain.
I'm going to disagree a little bit. I think we're in a new world. I think that COVID and climate can create a new world. I think Faith Popcorn is going to be shown to be right in a lot of ways. I think she's already been proven right in terms of cocooning. We've been forced into cocooning. We're doing it right now with multiple screens. I mean, again, when people ask me, what is it that gets people to understand, that I've been watching again all morning, everybody talk about it, the difference between Somnian Space or any of these spatial mediums versus the Zoom call thing that we're doing now, is that spatial layer of interface that allows for a much more natural communication style of not being basically smiling TV heads that have to be on 24/7.
Larry, I think this is time for my magic trick, by the way. So,
I love that.
So when I moved up here, I did a Matterport scan before I even saw this apartment, and we figured out how to move in. So, getting back to the topic of the talk, stories, I use this model in Janus VR to figure out where all it's tiny apartments, like 700 square feet. Not everything was going to fit, so we actually used Janus VR to get everything to fit perfectly, and my wife and I never had a fight. So,
nice.
Wow.
Well, I agree. The mixed reality aspect of where AR and VR, combine. The point I was getting is that I think more and more people are going to be spending their time. The aspect of mobile is going to be moved back a little bit in terms of what brings interactive 3D real-time media forward. That's all I'm suggesting.
But that said, I want to pick up a couple of these threads. I'm looking at the comment threads here. Memento Video's chiming in with this whole end user thing. So we talked about the creators component of this, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the users, the community members, the consumers ready for this technology, wanting this technology, it's also not going to succeed. And we're at a different place than we were the last two major times we tried this.
Right.
You've got Snap with lenses. You've got all these different consumer touch points educating people. The computers have gotten faster. The user experience is way less clunky. We're not quite there with WebXR yet, but we're going to get there. And so now we have like two generations, I think, at this point of digital natives. who are ready for this, and the use cases are becoming much more obvious. So you tie that together with the creativity, and Dan was saying it, like walking down the street with my AR glasses. That's only going to matter if people do that. If they get the glasses, if they want those experiences, because otherwise, we're in a different state where that's never going to take off.
I agree.
That's another key element to this.
I'm like going to jump into the success story piece in a sense, Samantha, if you don't mind, because again,
please, yeah,
my success story of this current go around, it's not about even digital natives, what they were called, because most of these people are can be 45 or above. They could be people who are TV natives. I mean, the point I'm getting at is that 15 years ago, a friend of mine who I've known for 20 years, who has a late night horror show, Mr. Lobo, Cinema Insomnia. Okay, so here's a television celebrity like Elvira or Svengoolie. Okay, so he broadcasts. That's what he's been doing for 20 years and has thousands of fans, whatever, all over the world. He meets them when he used to go to Comic-Cons and those, and do a live theater event. That's where he gets his money from, and things like that. So COVID hits. There's no Comic-Cons. There's no local shows. No Monsterpaloozas. He's cut off from selling trinkets and CD-ROMs, DVDs. But even 15 years ago, we had built a theater in Second Life, and we would do Friday night movies. But at that time, the ability to use Second Life, you need to be a member. You needed a high-end computer. Okay, the friction to get in was quite high, so that it was actually only really my audience from Starbase that would come to the movies, my fans, not his, quote unquote. But now, since COVID, we've been doing shows now using WebXR, using Mozilla hubs, the same models exported now into an open one-click URL, no membership away. So, and he does movies as well on YouTube, Twitch. Bottom line is, we'll get 50 to 100 people of his own fans. His fans are showing up now, so they love it. They discovered this new medium to be together. Socially, and this is not what we call a digital native crowd. These are a lot of cantankerous old, people who grew up like.
Well, we wouldn't know anything about that,
right? So the bottom line is, they found the media presented them a return, either on investment or entertainment on this side, and they're able to do it also because of the fact that they can view it on their phone, they can view it on an iPad, a PC. Yeah. Only a few come in HMDs.
Yeah.
But the ones who do. So
that's fantastic. I mean, I want to hear more success stories, because I want to keep it positive and not sound too much like we've done it all before and there's nothing new under the sun, because there is always, we're always reinventing new ways to put this stuff together, because there's so many pieces. My little success story from my early days, I think, is my favorite story to tell about being using the immersive web, was actually at my first VRTO experience. I was supposed to host a hacker's guide to the metaverse in the basement of the venue, which turns out had no internet connection. And so that became very difficult, but we used just tiny little servers with this hacked together protocol called Avalon that lets you put IPFS caches and the Janus web server right onto a little Raspberry Pi. And we were able to have, I think, 7 or 9 people in there at one time, all building completely on just one private little Raspberry Pi server in a basement. And we're all building WebXR, and people are bringing in their file formats, and we're sharing them. And to me, that was like a huge success in like such an early space where people are delivering these massive 4 GB apps to people's phones. Here we are, 8 of us in a tiny little web server together. That made me stick with the web. Like with all the other crap, like that experience was so powerful for me to see that we pulled it off. That was like a huge success story for me. So I'd love to hear one of yours, Tony, other than making the very first code of the metaverse, which was...
Well, okay, this one's going to be also a little bit arrogantly large in scope, so apologies, but this is the next one that comes to mind. Larry, you're going to have to learn how to say it. GLTF, okay?
Right.
So here we were working on a bunch of stuff in WebGL. People were making really cool, tons of demos in WebGL, which to me is the underpinning of the rendering underpinning of all this stuff, right? and it still continues to be. There will be, we've got web render coming. There's a bunch of stuff coming, web GPU, whatever. But, WebGL was the foundation of 2010, 2011. It was starting to really take off. And everyone kept writing their own content pipelines for every WebGL application. They had another OBJ converter, another this, another that. And so there was this little movement to start working on a file format that could be common across all those. And in our quiet spare time, we did it, and we finally created the JPEG of 3D in the form of GLTF. It's not vrml. It's not about, it doesn't define the behaviors. It's not trying to do the whole metaverse. It's giving you a way to exchange 3D content from client to server across through pipelines, whatever. And it quietly has become a complete success across the industry in terms of tools outputting it, tools inputting it, ingesting it. When you go to Snap and get 3D content, that 3D content is largely GLTF. When you go and get Facebook 3D lenses or whatever, it's GLTF. That's what's powering a lot of the stuff in the Oculus.
Yep.
Unity's ads uses it. I mean, it is Microsoft uses it in PowerPoint. It is just everywhere quietly. And to me, that is a massive success. So it's one of these things that's just like, okay, it's JPEG. You assume it's there. Yeah. It's like that.
That's a huge deal, because if I'm on the convention floor, showing this gigantic simulator on my phone, I only got a few seconds of a potential client's attention. And I can't wait for a Collada file to take 50 megabytes to download my phone in a busy convention center. So that GLTF stuff, yeah, absolutely essential.
Yep. No, I'm saying all my content that was 25 years old, that was 3DS, OBJ, and DXF stored, is all now in the format. I mean, and that format's...
We still can't pronounce it, though. But that's cool. Thank you for saying that, Larry.
I call it glib.
Well, that's the binary one. Glib is
that's
fine.
What I use.
Okay, so we've got GLTF. We have WebGL becoming WebGPU. We have self-sovereign identity. We have a lot of specs. We have the WebXR API. What specs should people be paying attention to? Let's list them. Let's make sure people write them down and know what they are so they can get involved. We talked about a few of them today. I haven't heard anyone definitively list what these specs are that you guys see having longevity here, and people that is something that people should pay attention to.
So absolutely WebXR and GLTF, and then USDZ someone's mentioning in the comments, because that's the Apple version of that. That's their QuickTime of 3D. That's going to be out there because it's going to support all their it's going to support all their tools. Their tools will support it. So that will coexist with GLTF. So one should pay attention to USDZ as well, for sure.
And then I think the other key is it doesn't exist yet, but I think whatever comes out of the crypto, out of of where Ethereum and other things are today, whatever becomes that coinage that can be embedded into the data.
I think there'll be lots. I personally think people should be following along with the verifiable credentials stack, decentralized identifiers, and the work that's being done on digital identity prior to blockchain, prior to all of these things. There's people have been thinking on this in this space for
Ethereum too.
Modeling primitives. So I think that's seeing that people starting to understand that who they are online is chunks of data and that they don't have control over. And actually, when we think about just a form factor changing, there's something that happens really funny. Like my dog, every time he sees a mannequin, he just gets so excited. And I think we kind of sometimes forget that the format that is natural to us is ourselves. Like these mirror neurons are in our body and we're used to seeing ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so the sort of avatar side seems to be coming really, really important. And to me, it's like even Albin was saying that this morning at our fireside chat about how he originally thought, our iframe embedder, like the thing that we embed in, that's the important thing that we have to keep everywhere. But what he realized was, no, it's not. It's actually the object inside of the box that we need to focus on. And so I see that happening right now with people. We're like, oh, we're in the box, right? And then there's these sort of new protocols emerging around that. And I think one of the things that I thought also on that note was so funny when we were first starting Janus VR was people were making all these controlled designs around alt space and stuff of how you look. And then I remember showing clients things from the web, and it's like all sorts of stuff from literally all over the web, like every file format you can imagine, like really high res, low res and stuff, and people are like, what is this? It looks like a bad like 90s trip. And it's like
yeah, but that's great. I mean, that's the VR chat style, right? That's what, I mean, the metaverse on the web is going to be VR chat style. It's going to be a complete free for all.
Yeah, it needs to be. And so that's the thing. I think it's like, what are the file formats that we think are going to enable people to see themselves or have more agency? Where are the platforms and the people sort of trends going where we're going to have more agency, and where do you see that going?
Dan, I'm waiting on Dan.
Well, to the avatar part, I'm just so tickled that I can go to Ready Player Me and create an avatar of myself, and I put it in WebVR, I've put it in VR chat, and I put it in my own military simulation software. You know,
yeah.
I can look down the nose of a Predator drone and see myself walking around town. It's great. You know, see my shiny head from the top.
I love Ready Player Me.
And I know that's one of the, you know, when people start talking metaverse, that's one of the things that they go on about is this interoperability where you can take your data to different places. And
Avatar
I'm already doing
working
it. It's
group.
great. Was that
back to the Avatars working group of God knows how long ago.
I mean, that is the thing. There will need to be interoperability around this kind of the identity level and what the thing looks like and how it performs level for sure. And you know, you might have GLTF doing the skins, but that is not the wave gesture. That is not how you interact socially. Those are layers much more on top of that. Some other kind of policy layers.
And the value.
Or simply, how do I know what this thing is doing? What's that, Larry?
The value. What's the value of that? You know, that dress that I just bought for you know, that you know, in that press release for $30,000. You know, that NFT dress. What does it mean when I now take it into another virtual world? All of a sudden, it's being copied and cloned, and you know, what is the value anymore?
And not everything needs to have like provenance or, you know, attribution, right? Like we used to just make, you know, with Creative Commons or Google Blocks, you throw all those into an IPFS server, and then now you have this easy drag and drop objects into worlds. I don't need to know whose object it was. I just need to know that I can take it from one place and drop it in Hubs and drop it in Janus, and it's going to work the same way.
Well, I think we need to figure out a mediated society, just like you know, like all societies are mediated. I mean, in real life, it's either God or nature that one believes in creating the universe, the so-called, you know, metaverse or whatever it is we're in. You know, we are the keeper of it, so we're building it. We're the mediator of it. And we'll have to figure out what those, you know, conventions are so that we either have anarchy or society. And I think that's been also a fight for 25 years between those who even want anarchy and chaos. And I think that's and you know, the irony is, you know, it's the old McLuhan. You know, we design our tools and then they mediums, and then they design us. I mean, how much of the last 20 years mucking around with pixels and Sims Online and Second Life has brought us to 2021 America, and the fact that we have a recall election going on right this moment, as easy as, you know, changing an avatar supposedly, you know, by flipping a switch in a virtual world. I mean, that's, you know, a metaphor, but it's not really. It's kind of a direct line.
We're on our way there for sure, and yeah, and I just wanted to add VRM to the sort of avatar file format thing to put onto people's radars there, because I know for me with my Blondtron virtual performer, I'm exporting her into VRM, GLTF, you know, Miku Miku Dance, like where a lot of different file formats, because I want to make it easy for her to appear in all these different places.
I think the audience avatar, that's going to be an important format of anything.
Totally.
The ability to be an audience avatar, forget about all the things you have to do in a virtual world, but if you just want to go into a club and either, you know, just listen to music or dance or watch a movie, you know, that might be a killer right there of need that goes across everybody's platforms.
Are these guys dad bombing our panel? What's happening over here?
No, I've been listening. We have been listening.
Hey, Tony.
It's like the Brady Bunch.
We said dance and California elections, so we all wanted to show up.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I thought you'd be in the polling places right now, Joanna. Gee.
They're dancing.
We have thoroughly enjoyed your discussion. This has been a rousing, fun thing to listen to. So thank you so much for doing that. Everybody's been back going, this is great. We love this. So thank you for an amazing discussion.
Oh, it was so fun. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And I'm super excited for this next panel. Thank you guys.
Yeah.